At 7:15 p.m., Mara set a cast-iron skillet on the back burner and turned the pork chop once, listening to fat tick against the pan. Nothing about dinner looked dangerous. The plate was warm. The window over the sink was dark. Her dog slept under the table, dreaming softly. 3 weeks earlier, she had pulled a tick from behind her knee after trimming brush along the fence line behind County Road 18. The CDC says alpha-gal syndrome is a serious, potentially life-threatening allergy that can develop after a tick bite, though not everyone bitten becomes sick. The bite left no symbol, no black vein, no warning ring, just a red dot she forgot by the next laundry day. That night she ate slowly. Pork, green beans, iced tea sweating onto a paper napkin. Outside, June insects tapped the screen. Alpha-gal is a sugar molecule found in most mammals, including cows and pigs, but not in people, according to the CDC. Her body did not reject the meal at the table. It waited. Like something downstairs deciding when to start moving. Symptoms can include hives, stomach pain, diarrhea, vomiting, trouble breathing, blood pressure drops, and anaphylaxis, often hours after mammal-derived food. At 12:38 a.m., Mara woke scratching her wrists. The room smelled like detergent, stale air, and the penny metal scent of panic. She stood in the bathroom, palms on porcelain, watching raised welts creep along her forearms under the humming vanity light. That delay is part of what makes alpha-gal strange. Reactions may arrive 3 to 6 hours after exposure, long after dinner feels over. She blames soap first, then laundry softener, then the cheap strawberries from the grocery bin beside the automatic doors. But the itching moved onto her skin with a purpose. Breath. It crossed her ribs like a hand feeling for a latch. From 2010 through 2022, the CDC identified more than 110,000 suspected U.S. alpha-gal cases, with possible cases far higher. Those numbers do not knock. They enter as ordinary nights, a rash after barbecue, a cramp after stew, a throat tightening after leftovers. CDC mapping found suspected cases clustered in the South, Midwest, and Mid-Atlantic, places where tick habitat and human routines overlap. The wrongness was not hiding deep in the woods. It was waiting in tall grass behind sheds, mailboxes, culverts, and school fields. Reports describe Lone Star ticks expanding north and west, with experts tying heavier tick pressure to warming conditions and changing landscapes. A tick does not need drama. It climbs. It waits with hooked legs open, small as a freckle, patient as a locked room. VCU researchers reported preliminary findings of a 100-fold increase in positive alpha-gal antibody test results between 2013 and 2024. It is easy to picture hunters. Harder to picture a teacher brushing leaves from her cardigan after bus duty. NBC reported research suggesting about 24% of sampled adults in 5 states had alpha-gal antibodies, showing exposure may be wider. Antibodies do not always mean illness. Researchers caution that exposure and clinical alpha-gal syndrome are not the same thing. That is what makes the story so quiet. Some bodies meet the molecule and move on. Others remember it too well. Mara remembered the tick only after the 3rd episode. Pause. Only after beef stew left her curled on the bathroom floor. For some people, triggers may include beef, pork, lamb, venison, dairy, gelatin, or other products made from mammals. The danger stopped looking like meat. It looked like capsules, soup stock, marshmallows, lotion, the small print she had never studied. If alpha-gal is suspected, consider working with an allergist before cutting broad categories of food, medicine, or medical products from your life. At the urgent care desk, Mara could not explain what she was afraid of. She only knew dinner had followed her into sleep. The CDC lists anaphylaxis among possible reactions, which means alpha-gal can become an emergency for some patients. After that, every meal became an interrogation. The plate did not change. She did. Her fork hovered like a question. VCU's Dr. Vinay Jagardar notes symptoms often appear hours after red meat, making the meal hard to connect to the reaction. Doctors asked about shellfish, peanuts, New detergent, anxiety. The tick stayed outside the story, tiny and patient. One approach may help. Note meals, symptoms, timing, medicines, and outdoor exposure. Then bring that pattern to a clinician. Clinicians may use a medical history, symptoms, physical exam, and blood testing for alpha-gal antibodies when evaluating suspected cases. Consider avoiding self-diagnosis. Similar symptoms can come from many causes, and a professional can help sort risk without guessing in the dark. Mara stopped opening the freezer after midnight. The wrapped venison looked less like food than evidence waiting for trial. The CDC says tick bites are associated with alpha-gal syndrome, and the Lone Star tick is the main tick linked in the United States. To lower risk, consider tick prevention before yard work, hikes, hunting, or brushing through grass where small bodies can climb unseen. EPA-registered repellents, permethrin-treated clothing, and careful tick checks may help, especially after time in brush, leaf litter, or tall grass. The CDC recommends preventing tick bites as one way to reduce the chance of developing alpha-gal syndrome after exposure. The season did not end when it used to. The first freeze arrived late. The grass stayed soft. The dogs kept bringing things home. Experts quoted by The Guardian describe an explosive increase in Lone Star ticks, with climate shifts helping extend where they survive. It is hard to fear a warmer night, until the night keeps something alive that should have been stopped by cold. Alpha-gal syndrome is not nationally notifiable in the United States, so researchers warn that official counts remain incomplete. A missing diagnosis leaves no clean outline. It moves through kitchens, pharmacies, emergency rooms, and family stories as a question nobody asks. The CDC estimates that as many as 450,000 people in the United States may have been affected by alpha-gal syndrome. Numbers do not itch. They do not wake up at 2006 a.m. with lips swelling against a pillowcase. Mara began choosing chicken without thinking. She passed the butcher counter like passing a room where someone had died quietly. The CDC notes reactions are usually tied to products from mammals, while poultry and fish do not contain alpha-gal. If hives, stomach trouble, or breathing symptoms appear hours after mammal products, consider asking a clinician about alpha-gal testing. Some nights the threat was obvious. Other nights it hid in broth, in gelatin, in a pill that looked harmless in her palm. The CDC says reactions vary by person, and people with alpha-gal syndrome may not react to every product the same way. That uncertainty became the body horror. Not transformation, not teeth, just a familiar hunger turning into a closed door. CDC symptom lists include skin reactions, gastrointestinal distress, breathing problems, dizziness, faintness, and severe allergic reactions requiring urgent care. The forest had not cursed her. The field had not chosen her. Something small had fed, and her immune system kept the receipt. After outdoor work, one approaches a careful full-body tick check, especially behind knees, around waistbands, underarms, and along hairlines. If you find an attached tick, consider removing it promptly with fine tweezers and contacting a professional if symptoms follow. Whisper. The bite is tiny. The change is not. It waits in the body like a light left on in an empty house. The CDC says other tick species may also be involved, but the Lone Star tick remains the one most associated with U.S. cases. People call it the Lone Star because of the pale spot. Under a flashlight, it looks almost deliberate. The CDC's geographic report found highest suspected case rates across parts of Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, and surrounding regions. If diagnosed, consider asking your clinician about emergency plans, medication, food substitutions, and which medical products may require caution. Not every ache is a warning. Not every rash is alpha-gal. But patterns have a way of standing still until you notice. Researchers and clinicians warn against overdiagnosis. Even as many symptomatic people may still go unrecognized. Still, Mara could trace the shape. Tick in May, pork in June, beef in July, midnight, again and again. If the story feels familiar, consider writing down the timing before memory smooths it over. Bring the quiet evidence with you. If Night Shift Stories keeps you company after dark, a quiet like or subscribe helps other late-night listeners find the door. The CDC recommends that people with alpha-gal syndrome work with healthcare providers to understand personal triggers and management choices. Weeks after the bite, Mara stood at the sink and let the hot water run over a clean plate. Outside, grass pressed against the foundation. The porch light hummed. Somewhere in the dark, something smaller than a seed climbed higher. Dinner cooled behind her. She did not throw it away. She only watched it, waiting for the room to tell her what it was.